Welcome to the Empowering Choices podcast. My name is Joshua, this is Erik, and this is Lucas. Erik and Lucas are licensed professional counselors, and on today's show, we're going to be diving into another very important parenting topic. But first, I just want to give you a quick reminder that we would love for you to be part of our community. When you join the Empowering Choices community, you get access to behind-the-scenes content and material, plus you get access to our app, which is a full-fledged parenting community where you can communicate with other parents and parenting coaches, and you also get access to all of our parenting courses, our resources, our free manual that is included as part of being a community member. You can pay by the month, or you can get a discount for paying by the year, and also make sure to check out some of our cool merchandise that's available to members and non-members, but members do receive a discount. Hey, let's get on with today's show. Welcome back to the Empowering Choices podcast. Today, we are talking about when you're missing one or more of the parenting tools. And last time we talked about the blood bond, and now we're going to talk about developed relationship. And is developed relationship a thing, or is it developing a relationship, or what is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
This is where Erik just makes up terms,
Yeah.
and then we talk about them.
Right. And then we define them.
Yeah.
It's the developed relationship, And so what are we talking about? Well, and like you said, there's different ways that you could phrase that, developing a relationship. It's basically you now have people in your household, and we're talking about, the children to the adults. How are you developing relationships with those children? Because, we talked about in the last podcast, you don't have the blood bond.
Right.
So you don't have that natural pull that's there. So when they hear you say no or don't or you can't or you shouldn't, in their head is going to fire off at a variety of different ages. Adulthood doesn't change this. You're not my dad. You're not my mom. You can't tell me what to do, which is kind of a reflection of the blood bond piece.
Mm-hmm. So in this example, we're talking about the idea of if you are missing an important part of what should or could be there. Mm-hmm. And this is saying if you are missing a developed relationship, is that the conceit that we're running off of?
Well, if you're missing the blood bond, then you've got to have a developed relationship. If you're missing the developed relationship, you haven't taken the time to do that, you're really behind an 8 ball.
Okay. So what kind of circumstance would you be in where you are lacking a developed relationship? The first one I can think of is let's say that you have a situation where this is the biological parent, and for some reason, maybe, I don't know, adoption, that person hasn't been in the child's life, or maybe divorce or separation, or there's a parent who is the biological parent who's coming back into the child's life. That's the kind of scenario that I think would encapsulate, I don't know, one of the
having a step parent is another one that's in there.
Having a step parent? Well, the step parent wouldn't have the blood bond. I suppose they would be stepping into the child's life without a developed relationship.
Exactly.
So they would be missing both of those two things that we've initially started talking about.
Exactly. So like you said, there's a variety of different scenarios that can produce this situation. And the answer is, how are you intentionally setting out to develop that relationship with the child? Old types of cultural beliefs are adults just need to be respected and children just need to respect them because they're adults. Today's day and world, that is not going to happen. That is not the piece that's just going to be there, that's going to carry you through the way it might have 50 years ago for a little bit of time. Now you've got to step in there and go, okay, how do we develop this relationship? So what are we thinking about? What are we thinking about how we would be able to do that if it was us? Now, for myself, because I've been a proctor parent and I've had kids come into my home at a variety of ages, even up to 18, where there's no blood bond and there's no established relationship before the point they come in. I had to begin to see, what do they like to do? What do they enjoy? where are the places where I share some of those enjoyments? How do I be able to spend some time that's really, crafted out in the day with them to begin to gain that respect and that nurturing with them?
Yeah, and it seems like sometimes, obviously different things work in different ways for different kids, but I've had lots of situations where I'm working with a youth group or a group of kids, and you've got some new kids that come in and they're not quite gelled and you don't have that relationship yet, but you take a little trip and either do a camping thing or you go somewhere, do a little trip to the coast for the weekend, do a little beach cleanup. You do something like that, and all of a sudden, they're much more connected and you have a much better relationship, and then they start to grow some respect for you. And so I kind of see that happening even outside of a parental area, and it only makes sense how much more strong that could get as a parent. But yeah, I do see, the whole, you're an adult, I respect you. So, that's not cutting it quite anymore.
Did you notice that doing activities worked better to build relationships with the boys versus the girls?
Yeah, probably.
That just seems like a male thing of like, we're going to do something together, and that's going to be the...
Yeah. And I think some of it though, also is true though. As long as you have enough time for both things, like the boys seem more excited about, okay, we're going to plant a bunch of trees and we're going to dig whatever. But on that same trip, maybe that night there's a popcorn movie night, and then the girls are in the back chit-chatting the whole time. And so I would always just do a little mixture of stuff, so that basically it kind of caught them all. But even as like leading a business, when we have a new employee come on board and we go for an amount of time in the office with that kind of thing, but then we do something like go on an out-of-town trip to do even a business thing, that person almost guaranteed always comes back feeling stronger connected and better relationships with everyone. And so I would just view this from a parenting standpoint as figuring out different things that you can do to develop that relationship that go beyond just the daily, things that you're doing, but finding some things that are maybe unique or that kid would really light up about where you can do together to do that.
And you're dead on. And in a lot of the things you were talking about, you actually brought in some of the gender differences that are there. Boys talk more over working with their hands. So you're planting a bunch of trees, you're using your hands.
Right.
Girls will talk in depth more the hour before bedtime. So in the evening, and especially when it comes to bedtime, so there's some certain and specific things that you may want to know as you're trying to connect with the kids in your home, girls versus boys.
Right.
When the 18-year-old that I had, movies was one of his big thing. He wanted to share movies that he enjoyed or he anticipated. I did not necessarily enjoy Twilight the way he hoped I would, and he definitely did. But he also loved auto mechanics. And so he's out there in the garage working on his car, and it would just light up his world if I just come out there. I know nothing about mechanics. I know so nothing about mechanics. I have been banned from ever trying to be a mechanic on any car I own. Now, they didn't ban me from any car anyone else owns, but they did on my car. And so I'm just handing him things, to which he's just talking. And he loved that time.
Yeah.
Another boy we had, he loved the Xbox. And he loved, at first he wasn't a big person with sports games and things. In fact, he hadn't had a lot of different games. He just knew he loved Xbox. And so I introduced him to football, Madden football. And the hour and a half before it was basically lights out, I would go there every night and we would play a game of Madden football.
Nice.
And in the beginning, he's not doing well. And so that's something you have to keep in mind, because if I would have, because I played football, for years and years and years and years over these games. And if I would have just, decimated him, he's done. So I had to keep it in mind. How do I keep him in the game? Which means at times for myself, I may be throwing tackles. I may be running around and letting him tackle me for losses. I'm just letting him get his own, feel for the game and build up his skills in there, because eventually he's now up to where he can play. And we're playing, and he's enjoying it, and he's winning games or losing just barely. And he's loving that time. So you're looking for the different things that you and the children in your home enjoy doing, and you carve out some time to do it. And I'm going to tell you, I tell this so much to different people. Coloring with crayons at the kitchen table, if your kids like to do that, even if it's 10 to 20 minutes in a day, it's priceless. Because basically, you're just there with them, and they will bring up different things to talk about and share and look at and make comments and pick colors and offer colors. And it's incredible how powerful that one activity can be. And if coloring can be that powerful, what else can be powerful that they enjoy?
Right. And a lot of the things that you mentioned while you're doing them, they're kind of forcing interaction, right? Because, hey, your guy just hit my guy in the game and I'm saying stuff. Circling back to things like I want to share my favorite movie with you, which I've always thought is an interesting first date when couples go on a date and their first date is to the movies. Like, you sit and watch a movie.
It's a fairly terrible first date.
Right. So there's not like a lot of conversation or get to know you. So I would think that one of the things that you would want to do is really work to cultivate some conversation before and or after that movie to try to dive into like, so tell me what you like so much about that or what do you think about this or that? And so I think some activities innately include all of that. And then others, you maybe have to get a little crafty to make sure that you're not, and there is some importance of that time that you just spend there sitting watching, but to really then take it to the next level of, hey, let's talk about this, or how did that make you feel, or why do you think so-and-so did that, that kind of thing.
Those are great ideas. And even just having things set out that time is there and they can count on that time. One of the girls that I had, one night was movie night, and she would pick or I would pick, and it would go back and forth. The idea, because she had come up with this idea, the idea is we pick out of our favorite movies to share with the other person, which is all great. What I didn't realize is her favorite movies come out of the horror genre.
Oh, good.
and her favorite movie is Pet Sematary.
Wow, okay.
So that's not my genre, but boy, I sat there and I watched.
Yeah.
And I gained some appreciation for, what is it that you like about this movie? Because you talk about, this is the movie we're going to do, and this is why I like it.
Yeah. One of the things that I just was reminded of, that I used to do with my dad when he would grill dinner sometimes, we had this kind of covered back porch and we had a swing on it. And basically, while he was grilling, I liked to be outside to see the activity going on, but we would always sit in that swing and we would talk. And probably one of my most memorable memories was when we got swinging too much and that swing and the chains broke and we got flung out of it. But what's fascinating is you're taking something that sort of can be a mundane thing, standing out there watching the hamburgers, and instead doing that, the kids partly interested, but then bringing them into that and making that kind of a thing. And then that was like, I always enjoyed knowing we were going to grill something for dinner, because that meant that I could sit out there and talk in the swing to my dad.
My dad, who was a genius, thought that just having me there at his side, handing him tools, was the great quality time we would spend together. The entire time I'm spending my Saturday handing him tools next to the lawnmower or whatever it was, all I'm thinking of is, there's another minute of my Saturday wasted. There's another minute of my Saturday wasted. There's another minute of my Saturday. I didn't absorb anything.
You could be doing anything else but
Oh
that.
my gosh. Oh yeah. And you talk about needing bathroom breaks. You would have thought I had dysentery. Anything to get away. And if my dad had realized that if he were to come and engage me in my world, and because I've mentioned in other podcasts, he would drag me around for a lot of different things. He just wouldn't include me in the dragging around. So when he was dragging me around to do archery, when he found out I really liked archery, if he'd have just taken me, he and I, that would have been awesome, because he had my interest right there. And so you're looking for the places where you have your child's interest. You have that child's interest. And how do you get into that? It could be playing dinosaurs on the floor, and I hear a lot from parents, well, I don't know how to play. And I'm like, well, what'd you do as a child? Well, I didn't get to play. Okay, well, what did that look like? And then, okay, let's say you didn't get to play. Do you want me to help you learn how to play? Because it's not a skill that if you didn't get it, you don't have it. Because I'm going to bet anything that you have places in your life as an adult where you play. Now, how do we just help you translate that to dinosaurs with your child?
All right, whatever your kid's into.
Right, because even if it's just, I'll shift a little bit, because I had one boy and one dad, and dad was a person who's like, I don't know how to play. What do I do? I'm like, follow his lead.
Sure, yeah.
He's going to tell you, now you're doing this, Dad. Okay. Now you're this, Dad. And
won't they though?
Right. And Dad was a person who was deeply involved in theatrical pieces throughout his life. I'm like, Dad, you're an actor. Act and have fun. And so,
how is acting not playing?
Right.
I mean, like.
Exactly.
Just take that into whatever you're doing with your kid.
Here's a cultural piece. We're Americans. We've been taught in our society to compartmentalize everything. And the compartments don't run with doors to the other compartments. And so once you begin to point these things out, then those doors begin to appear. And then people are able to make those connections. And so you got to get in there. You got to find out what the kid likes. You have to, involve yourself in that. It doesn't mean you have to like everything they like. It doesn't mean you have to do everything they want. This is not the primo supremo parenting. They still have to learn a healthy balance. And as a kid, I don't fault them for saying, I have an adult who wants to spend time with me, therefore I want all the time.
Right. And that's that. Well, as with so many things, it's on a spectrum, right? If you spend zero time with them, that's bad.
Right.
And you can spend too much time with them to their detriment.
I so hate that word spectrum, but that's another thing. But yes, you're right. A part of parenting them is teaching them how to be an adult who has balance and boundaries, and that happens within routines and such, And so all those pieces play a part.
So two of the things that I've kind of heard that stand out to me, and they're interconnected, was, Josh, you were talking about like not just doing the routine things. Those are good. Do those too. But then also do like special things.
Right.
That, I mean, maybe like outings. But then connected to special things, that kind of the second idea is like making sure that you're doing things that are interests of your child. And that could be the special thing. Although you said like, coloring with crayons on the kitchen counter is somewhat more mundane. But there's kind of those two elements.
It's seen that way.
Well, it's there's less investment of kind of like time, and then not less investment of time, but it's like, there's less to it than like going camping, right? I don't have to like pack up the whole car to do crayons at the counter.
Correct.
There's some lesser qualities to it's like easier to do.
Right. And so you've got these different levels of activities, but kind of the point is the coloring can be just as powerful as the camping. And it just depends on the child. I knew one girl that her stepfather wanted to build that relationship. And so he was like, yeah, let's do the trips. Let's go fishing. Well, I'll take her fishing. We'll go fishing. This will be great.
Does she like fishing?
She struggles with the death of living things.
That's not going to go over very well.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work. And he was like, well, she can do other things while I fish.
While I fish. Wait, hold on.
That's not going to work in what you're thinking. I mean, I see what you're trying to do. You want to go do the activities that you want to do. Right. And I totally hear that. I don't want you, and I'm not advocating as parents that you give up all activities or interests, because that's not good care for yourself. You have to be able to recharge your own batteries. You have to be able to, as a team with your significant other, be able to, help build your growing relationship. So time has to be spent in those areas. But if you're dragging her along to something that she really struggles with philosophically, that's not going to work.
Right.
That particular stepdad was invited by her to go see the newest Elvis movie that was out, and he took it. They went.
The kid invited him?
Yep. Kid invited him. They had a blast. It was a much better outcome than the fishing.
And some of what we've been talking about requires you to be like paying attention, because you said like your dad didn't seem to be picking up on the cues that you were inevitably giving him around this isn't working for me. Right. And you were, I think we were having a conversation previously around like, yeah, my dad doesn't pay attention to me, and when he does, he forgets what I tell him 5 seconds later. So you have to be like picking up the cues from your child, if they're verbal or nonverbal. And if you have to write them down or something, or if you have like, if I'm dad in this scenario and I'm having a difficult time remembering what my kids are like, talk to your spouse, like, hang on. Like if they pay attention better than you do, like something, I don't know, get it into your brain.
These are some of those powerful tools that are very necessary in parenting. And you don't have to do it alone. You do have to develop some skills for listening and hearing and being able to communicate.